Julia Roberts chock-full mid-sentence. She looked at the old letter and America's best acclaimed smile abolished into complete silence. It was a Tuesday night in October 2019. The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Studios 6A at 30 Rockefeller Plaza. Julia Roberts was there to advance her latest film. Edition columnist tour, edition backward night appearance, edition annular of absorbing belief and communicable amusement that had fabricated her one of Hollywood's best admired stars for 3 decades. Aggregate was activity perfectly. Jimmy had opened with his monologue. The admirers was energized. The roots were on point. Julia absolved out to clap acclaim, cutting an affected dress, that signature smile lighting up the absolute studio. They'd been talking for maybe 5 minutes. Jimmy asked about her kids. She told a funny adventure about her daughter. The admirers laughed. It was arbiter backward night television, warm, entertaining, effortless. And a fresh addition in the advanced row stood up. An aged woman, maybe 75, maybe 80, dressed simply, annihilation flashy. She had article in her hand, a allotment of cardboard yellowed with age, bankrupt carefully. "Excuse me," the woman said, her articulation abashed but determined. "Miss Roberts, I charge to accord you something." Aegis confused immediately. This wasn't protocol. Admirers Associates didn't arrest tapings. Jimmy's ambassador was already signaling to the guards, accessible to accept the woman escorted out. But Julia had angry in her chair. She'd apparent the woman, apparent the cardboard in her hand, and her face changed. Not the affable television smile, not the accommodating celebrity acknowledgement. Article deeper. Article that looked about like acceptance alloyed with confusion. "Wait," Julia said to the Aegis guards, captivation up her hand. She looked at Jimmy, afresh aback at the woman. What is that?" The aged woman stepped afterpiece to the bend of the date area, still captivation the paper. Her easily were shaking. "It's a letter," she said. "From 1989. You wrote it to my granddaughter. Her name was Emily. Emily Patterson." Julia Roberts went actually still. The smile vanished. Her duke confused to her throat. Jimmy chock-full mid-joke. The absolute flat froze. Jimmy looked from Julia to the woman and aback again. His ball instincts told him to accomplish a joke. Lighten the moment. Move on. But article in Julia's announcement chock-full him cold. "I don't understand," Julia said quietly, her articulation about oral over the flat microphones. "Emily Patterson. That was 30 years ago. 30 years ago this month," the woman confirmed, tears now arresting on her asperous cheeks. "October 1989, you met her at a children's hospital in Los Angeles. Cedars-Sinai, you were there filming something. I anticipate she was 8 years old. Terminal leukemia. 3 weeks larboard to live." The admirers had gone actually silent. Jimmy stood arctic beside his desk, dejected cue cards dangling, abandoned in his hand. The roots had chock-full moving. Every camera in the flat backward bound on this advance moment. Julia's eyes abounding with tears. "I remember," she whispered. "I bethink Emily." The woman nodded, clumsy to a ledge for a moment. Afresh, she captivated up the letter. "You spent 2 hours with her that day. You sat by her hospital bed. You told her stories. You fabricated her laugh. And afore you left, she asked you to address her a letter. She said she capital article to keep, article to admonish her that alike in a hospital, admirable things could still happen. I wrote it on hospital stationery." Julia said, the anamnesis acutely calamity aback in the nurse's station. "I bethink the pen about worked. I had to columnist so hard." She agitated this letter every day for the 3 weeks she had left. The woman continued, her articulation breaking. "She fabricated me apprehend it to her every night afore bed. Alike aback she was too anemic to accessible her eyes. She capital to apprehend your words. She died captivation it." Jimmy Fallon acquainted tears active bottomward his face. He didn't clean them away. 300 admirers associates were crying. The ascendancy allowance had gone silent. Julia stood up boring from the bedfellow chair. "May I?" She started afresh stopped. "May I see it?" The woman climbed the stairs to the stage. Aegis let her pass. She absolved beyond that acclaimed Tonight Show attic beneath those ablaze lights and handed Julia Roberts a letter she'd accounting 3 decades ago to a dying child. Subscribe and leave a animated version because the best able allotment of this adventure is still ahead. Julia took the letter with abashed hands. The cardboard was actually yellowed, channeled from actuality bankrupt and abundant endless times, the edges bendable from years of accurate handling. She abundant it slowly. Her own autography stared back at her. 21-year-old Julia Roberts, aloof alpha, her career afore Pretty Woman would accomplish her a superstar, autographed to a little babe who would never abound up. She apprehended it silently, her aperture effective slightly. Tears streamed bottomward her face, bottomward assimilate the old paper. Aback she finished, she looked up at the woman, Emily's grandmother. I didn't apperceive she died, Julia said, her articulation cracking. I went aback to the hospital 2 weeks after to appointment her again. They told me she'd been discharged. I anticipation, maybe she'd gotten better. I anticipation, maybe there had been a miracle. The grandmother befuddled her arch gently. There was a miracle, aloof, not the affectionate you hoped for. You gave her joy in her final days. You fabricated her feel special. You fabricated her feel seen. That was the miracle. Julia apprenticed the letter to her chest over her heart, ball openly. Now Jimmy absolved over, put his arm about her shoulder, not as a host, but as a beastly actuality witnessing abstruse affliction and adulation colliding on his stage. The admirers didn't apperceive whether to acclaim or breach silent. They chose silence, giving this moment the admiration it deserved. To accept what happened next, you charged to accept October 1989. Julia Roberts wasn't Julia Roberts yet. She was a 21-year-old extra with a few baby roles active in Los Angeles, auditioning constantly, acquisitive for her big break. She'd been casting in a baby absolute blur that was cutting some scenes at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. During a breach in filming, she'd wandered into the pediatric wing. Not for any accurate reason, aloof active activity amid takes. She'd absolved accomplished the children's blight area and apparent a little babe in one of the rooms, bald-led from chemotherapy, amidst by blimp animals, watching Sesame Street on a baby TV. Article fabricated Julia stop. Maybe it was the way the babe was sitting so baby in that big hospital bed. Maybe it was the balloons angry to the bed abuse that said, get able-bodied soon. Alike admitting anybody knew she wouldn't. Julia had a gape on the aperture frame. Hi, I'm Julia. Is it accept if I appear in? The little girl, Emily, had looked up with huge eyes. Are you an actress? I'm aggravating to be, Julia had said with a smile. But mostly I'm a aloof addition who saw you from the alley and anticipation you looked like you ability appetite some company. Emily's grandmother had been there, too, sitting in the bend chair, befitting acuity like she did every day. She'd started to object. This was her granddaughter's final days, not time for accidental visitors. But article about this adolescent woman's 18-carat amore fabricated her pause. Julia had sat on the bend of Emily's bed. They talked about everything. Movies, school, Emily's blimp beastly collection, Julia's additions. Emily had told Julia about the cine she capital to accomplish someday. A adventure about an angel who didn't charge extenuative because she could save herself. That's an acceptable movie, Julia had said. Addition should accomplish that. Will you accomplish it? Emily had asked. Aback, you're an acclaimed actress. Julia had laughed. I'm not activity to be famous, but if I anytime get the chance, I'll bethink your idea. They'd spent 2 hours together. Aback, Julia assuredly had to leave. The assembly of better was calling for her. Emily had asked for one thing. Will you address me a letter? So, I can bethink today. Julia had begun cardboard in the nurse's station, a pen that about worked, and she'd accounting Emily Patterson a letter about dreams and princesses, and how actuality adventurous doesn't beggarly not actuality scared. It agency actuality afraid, and accomplishing the affair anyway. She'd accustomed it to Emily's grandmother to deliver. And afresh she'd gone back to the set, accomplished filming, confused on with her life. 6 months later, Pretty Woman came out. Julia Roberts became one of the better cine stars in the world. Her activity adapted overnight. The anamnesis of Emily Patterson faded, not forgotten, but active beneath the barrage of acclaim and assignment and the adamant clip of abrupt stardom. Behind the scenes, Fallon fabricated an accommodation that defied every producer's expectation. Jimmy looked at his ambassador in the ascendancy allowance through the camera. He could see Bobby in the monitor, aimlessly aggravating to amount out what to do. Cut to commercial. Accumulate rolling. This wasn't in the script. This was authentic chaos. Jimmy fabricated the decision. He looked anon at camera one. Folks, he said, acclamation both the flat admirers and anybody watching at home. I apperceive this isn't what you accepted tonight. This isn't a ball bit. This isn't planned. This is real. And I anticipate we charge to account it. He angry to Julia and Emily's grandmother, still continuing calm on the stage, the letter amid them. Julia, Jimmy said gently. Would you apprehend it? Apprehend what you wrote to Emily. Julia looked at him, eyes red, mascara stray on television. She agitated it every day for 3 weeks. Jimmy said, maybe the apple should apprehend what gave her so abundant comfort. Julia looked at the grandmother who nodded through her tears. She would accept capital that. She'd be so appreciative that you remembered her. Julia abundant the letter again. Her easily were afraid so abominably that Jimmy stepped after peace and captivated up a microphone for her, his added duke abiding on her shoulder. But this is the moment no one in the flat, and no one watching at home anytime saw coming. Julia began to read. Her articulation absurd on about every word, but she pushed through. Dear Emily, today I met a princess. She didn't abrasion a crown, and she wasn't in a castle, but I knew she was an angel anyhow because she had the best important thing, courage. You told me you're scared. That's okay. Actuality adventurous doesn't beggarly you're not scared. It agency you're scared. And you accumulate animated anyway. You accumulate admiring your family. You accumulate watching your admired shows. You accumulate actuality you like a back it's hard. I'm afraid too, Emily. I'm afraid I'm not acceptable enough. I'm afraid I'll fail. I'm afraid Cypher will bethink me. But today you accomplish me something. It's not about actuality remembered by everyone. It's about actuality acclaimed to someone. And you, Emily Patterson, are actually acclaimed to me. You asked me to accomplish your cine someday. The one about the angel who saves herself. I affiance I will try. And aback I do, I'll bethink the babe who gave me the idea. The bravest actuality I any time met. Accumulate actuality a princess. Accumulate actuality brave. And apperceive that about out there's an extra who believes in you and thinks you're actually magical. Love, Julia. By the time Julia finished, there wasn't a dry eye in flat 6A. The admirers was standing, not applauding yet, aloof continuing in adherent acknowledgement. The roots had tears alive bottomward their faces. Quest adulation had his arch in his hands. Jimmy pulled off his clothing anorak and draped it about Julia's shoulders, a action of aegis of humanity. He angry to Emily's grandmother. Why did you delay 30 years? He asked. Why accompany this now? The grandmother smiled through her tears. Because Emily fabricated me a affiance article afore she died. She said, when Julia becomes famous, absolutely famous, I appetite you to acquisition her, and acquaint her acknowledge you. Acquaint her she fabricated my aftermost canicule beautiful. Acquaint her she kept her affiance about actuality brave. Julia fell to her knees, still clutching the letter. Jimmy knelt beside her, captivation her while she cried. The grandmother knelt too, and the three of them backward there on the Tonight Show date beneath the ablaze lights, while cameras advertisement, this moment of authentic beastly affiliation to millions. After several minutes, Julia stood. She looked at the letter one added time, a fresh did article that would ascertain this moment forever. She absolved to Jimmy's desk, opened the top drawer, and placed the letter inside. This stays here, she said firmly, her articulation stronger now. In this flat area Emily's adventure was assuredly told, area her courage was honored. Jimmy nodded, understanding. It'll be safe here. I promise. Julia angry to the audience, wiping her eyes. Emily capital me to accomplish a cine about an angel who saves herself. I never did, but I'm activity to now. And every penny of accumulation goes to pediatric blight research. In Emily Patterson's name, the flat erupted, continuing ovation, tears and acclaim bond together. The grandmother accepted Julia, whispering, thank you over and over. Share and subscribe. Accomplish abiding this adventure is never forgotten. The letter backward in Jimmy's board drawer for 3 years. A fresh Julia had it preserved and donated to the Children's Hospital Los Angeles with a plaque. Emily Patterson, the bravest princess, 1981 to 1989. The blur was made. It premiered in 2022. Julia committed it to the little babe who accomplished me what adventuresomeness absolutely means. And every October, Jimmy Fallon opens his board drawer and remembers the night television chock full pretending.